Hi guys, so we know that Brexit is having an impact in Northern Ireland, but if you're to listen to the likes of the DUP, you'd be forgiven for believing that the sky is falling. Instead, while it's been a challenge to businesses in Northern Ireland to get on with it, they have been helped by the grace periods, which have taken the edge off the protocol and which in turn has taken the edge off Brexit. As I said on numerous occasions, we need to stop listening to politicians and start listening to experts. So you're going to hear from Stuart Anderson, who is a senior policy advisor at the CBI, or the Confederation of British Industry in Northern Ireland. He's going to explain how businesses there have been dealing with the impact of the protocol.
But just at its very basic level, in trade terms, when you put, and setting aside if we can the political issues, putting fetters on trade with GB, which accounts for 2/3 of what we buy and sell, was always going to be particularly challenging. And it was always going to be particularly challenging in the time frame that was set out. But from our experience, and all the caveats have been well laid out around the data that's available to date and all that comes with that. But our experience to date is that trade has moved reasonably well. The issues around shelves being stacked, empty shelves at the start of the year, there's a spectrum of views on that. I think if you speak directly to the retailers, a lot of the time it was a very deliberate decision because of the limited time frame that they had to prepare. Supermarkets have around 40,000 to 50,000 products at any one time on their shelves, and it was very much an issue of choice, where we had maybe 200 to 300 products discontinued for a limited period of time at the beginning of the year, and we've seen that progress through time. So as I said, trade is moving reasonably well. What I would say, however, is that we are very conscious of the fact that that is down to the grace periods, whether they be mutually agreed or unilateral at this particular point. We're very conscious of that. I think the discussion around the 30th of June and that particular cliff edge, is if I may call it that, is slightly misplaced. I think the focus of our attention should be on the grace period that has been unilaterally extended in relation to certifications, and also the grace period in respect of medicines at the end of this year. And I think they're particularly the hearts and minds issues that we need to look at. I think from a CBI perspective, and certainly from a collective business representative organisation perspective, we accepted the protocol. It wasn't perfect, but we recognised it was a political compromise with economic consequences. But we were prepared to work with it because it was a framework, and it was a dynamic framework that was supposed to evolve over time. But I think the question for us and how we kind of strive to make it work, and it's a two-part question, and I think it's one that would be really useful that we as a panel look at and we examine, is the first part is how do we make it as invisible to the consumer as possible around those hearts and minds issues, around issues like SPS and medicines. How do we make the protocol disappear from everyday life, as it were, insofar as we can within the framework that's been provided? The second question is, and I think it's one that is finding its way into conversation, but is one that has yet been fully, if I'm honest, I don't think has been fully thought through and considered, is whenever the protocol is fully implemented, and whenever we see it evolve in a particular way, can it drive an economic advantage for Northern Ireland PLC to create jobs and prosperity? There's certainly the political discussion around that, but where does the economic debate lie in relation to that?
So I think the two issues he's raised here are quite interesting. Let's park the political aspect for a moment. How can businesses make the protocol invisible? I think the only way really to make the protocol invisible is for the full implementation of the protocol, in a sense that if the UK government implemented in full, the checks will take place, but what will happen is, as the checks take place, they will be streamlined. As the software is updated, as the people carrying out the checks get more accustomed to doing that, they will become more efficient. And of course, you're not going to be able to eliminate the protocol, but you are able to get to a stage where the impact is minimal and people will become so accustomed to having the protocol that it will seem normal. I think that's probably one of the only ways of doing that. And then the second point that he talked about here, of course, is the what will be the benefits for Northern Ireland of having the protocol. And I think we've talked about this before. Northern Ireland is going to be part of the Northern Ireland is part of the single market when it comes to goods, but it also has access to GB. Now, of course, there are still limitations on goods coming in from GB, but as I said with the first point, as things get better, as the software gets updated, as the people carrying out the checks get better at carrying out those checks, more highly skilled in carrying out these checks, checking the paperwork, whatever, you know, at the beginning there are always problems. As the further you go along the road, the better people get at doing their job. And I think one will lead into the other, in the sense that the better the streamlining of the protocol becomes, the more invisible it becomes, the more businesses in Northern Ireland will be able to take advantage of maybe importing from, let's say, the Republic of Ireland and selling into GB, but also selling, of course, in Northern Ireland. So instead of relying on supplies coming from Great Britain, they'll be able to rely on goods and supplies coming from the EU or the Republic, and then they'll be able to sell their goods into GB. Now, there isn't a huge amount of trade that takes place between Great Britain and Northern Ireland. The CBI here, they said that until recently it represented 2/3 of trade in Northern Ireland. There's a huge amount of trade going from Great Britain into Northern Ireland, I should say, but there's not a huge amount going the other way. But if businesses in Northern Ireland are quite savvy, what they can do is they can take advantage of that situation. Of course, there are businesses in Great Britain who can't export or are having trouble exporting from Great Britain into Europe or into Northern Ireland. They are hamstrung in a sense because of third country status. Northern Ireland should be able to take advantage of that, and businesses in Northern Ireland should prosper. But of course, as I park the political aspect, we need the politicians, of course, to make sure that the protocol is implemented. Businesses are being pragmatic. Businesses understand that it's here to stay. We need to work within the framework. It's a dynamic framework, as he has said, but the politicians truly need to be on board. Let me know in the comment section, guys, what you think. As always, your comments are greatly appreciated. Thanks a lot. I want to say a big thank you to all of my patrons. You ensure that this channel continues to exist. I'm eternally grateful for all of your support. If you join Patreon, you will receive instant access to our Discord server, where we have both audio and video chats. You can chat with me and other patrons, where we discuss important and non-important issues. Becoming a patron per month costs about the same as a large coffee, so why not check it out?